So I want to do like a series of videos. I've kind of touched on some different things and elements of this in some of my other videos that you may have seen. If this sort of subject material and this kind of video isn't for you, that's cool. Switch on, check out some of the other videos and stuff. But I want to spend a little bit of time now, and the reason that I want to do it is because I've had quite a few instances of late and also in the past where I've had friends, and not even that, just like acquaintances and people hitting me up on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, where people have asked for my advice, and I'm not sitting here saying that I'm Mr. Know-It-All, I'm not Mr. All-Knowing, and I've been there and done it all, because I haven't. But at the same time, I have achieved a fair amount, I've experienced a fair amount, and what has happened in those instances where I've kind of had people come to me and say, yo, can you give me some advice on this? And I've given them that. It's found to have, they've come back to me afterwards and said, you know what, that's really helped. And that's a nice thing for me to be able to do. And obviously it allows me to learn from that in many ways as well, because just by having these conversations and by doing these videos, it makes me think about my life and am I doing what I'm preaching at the end of the day? Because who is anyone to be able to say, oh, you should do this with your life, if they're not doing the same with their own? So by doing these, it actually gives me an opportunity to make sure that I keep myself in check and keep myself assessed and stuff. But in this particular video, I want to talk about like opportunities, seizing opportunities, but how you can capitalize on them and how you can make sure that you're doing the most that you can do, i.e. are you optimizing your time? Everybody has 100% worth of capacity. If you imagine your time, your abilities and skills, put it all in a tank. That tank is full with 100% of you and what you can do. Now you need to make sure that you're utilizing as much of that tank, the skills, the time, you're utilising as much as that as possible. If you're not utilising it, if you're not making the most of it, if you're only using 10% of it, then you're probably not going to achieve as much as you could have. That you might be happy with that, but at the end of the day, I think most of us strive to improve on a daily basis. Most of us strive to achieve our goals, our dreams, and once we achieve those, we create new goals and dreams so that we can continue. It's a continuous evolution. And I feel like many of the people that I've spoken to recently, they thought that they were doing a lot. They thought that they were working hard, but then when we actually sat down and assessed what they were doing, it kind of transpired that actually they could be doing a whole lot more. So I'll give you some examples based on myself. So some of you may know, I don't know, but my background and what I've been doing for the last sort of 10, 15, 20 years or so. But it's kind of like, 10, 15, but it's kind of like I've put myself in a position where originality has favoured me. So for example, I saw quite a bit of success in my world as in career as like a free running performer, an artist. It wasn't necessarily that I planned on that initially, but it definitely transpired that way, and a big reason for that was because myself and the people that I was doing it with, we were one of the first there, and we were doing it with originality. We were creating videos, we were creating photos, we were going to shows, we were putting ourselves out there in the media and in ways that no one had done before, no one had seen before. And the fact that we were the first doing it played a huge role on the success that we then continued to drive. And obviously it took a lot more hard work, efforts, training, skills, development, and so on and so forth to go into it. But there's a big thing to be said for being that original person, to step outside the box, not follow the grain, not follow what everyone else is doing, but to actually think, what can I do differently? And you can apply that in many different ways. It doesn't necessarily have to be a completely original thing. So for example, whatever industry you want to go into, maybe you want to manufacture beds, maybe you want to get into the health and fitness industry. It doesn't matter what you want to do. Find something that you enjoy and have a bit of passion towards, but think about how you can put an original spin on that. And what we call that is a USP, essentially, a unique selling point. What are you doing differently that others aren't doing that is going to make you stand out, or your business stand out, or your brand? Maybe that's yourself as an individual, as a performer maybe, or it could be anything. But at the end of the day, if you're just doing what everyone else is already doing, then you're not going to see any different results. You're not going to ever surpass them. And if anything, you probably won't ever come close to them, because they've also got the fact that they were there before you. So you've got to start thinking outside of the box. What can you be doing differently? Is there a certain bed that you can manufacture that other people haven't thought about, maybe in the design, maybe in the ergonomic comfort element of it, even in the health and fitness industry? Is there a way that you can approach it that other people aren't doing it? That might be with an original piece of technology, or that might be a slightly different approach in how that you go about it. Maybe you're selling it to a specific market that other people aren't really selling it to. There's a million and one ways of doing it, but always think about what you can do differently. And what that comes down to, when you've got your tank of capacity, the beauty of that is that you only really need to use a small percentage of your capacity, your time, your skills and stuff, if you're using it in a way that is superior or more beneficial and more effective than others. Other people might be putting 100% effort into doing crap, basically, but you're putting 10% into doing amazing things. You're probably going to see even more results. Now, what we're going to try and do is make it so that you're putting 100% into purely productive, amazing things, and then, success is ensured so long as you kind of continue to push and drill in for that, basically. So that's what this video and this whole sort of talk is about, essentially, of just making sure that you're assessing where you're at, make sure that you're optimizing your time. So a lot of the people that I'd spoke to recently, they said, I work really hard, or I want to set up my own business and stuff, what should I do? And I was listening to some other sort of mentor stuff, some other sort of entrepreneurial advice and things, and a couple came across really, really effectively on something that I've been doing but not necessarily documenting. And I always say to people, get yourself into like a stable position. Like, most people have a job of sorts, like some people come across and they're like, I'm going to set up a business. And it's like, I'm just going to give up everything that I'm doing, I'm just going to go for it. And then after 6 months it hasn't made money, and they're now either lost in life, depressed because it didn't make it, or whatever, But those things take time, a lot of time and a lot of effort. More so than that comes across on the internet these days. Like, you see all these kind of like, I'm a successful entrepreneur, I made $1 million in like 3 months. Like, that shit just isn't realistic. It doesn't happen. Like, some people got lucky, and that is luck. I don't care what anyone says. Like, if you made that kind of money in 3 months, it's because you got lucky with whatever you were doing. Like, the majority of the time, yes, sure, you might have put some efforts and so on into it, but at the end of the day, to get the turnaround that quick just isn't realistic. And I feel like it creates the wrong perceptions. And what I feel is most important to do if you're going to kind of embark on that, whether it is a business, it might be just developing something else, like a financial thing on the side that you want to build, or a skill-based thing on the side. Maybe you want to become a fantastic basketball player, or whatever it might be. At the end of the day, keep doing what you're doing. Keep your 9 to 5. Keep your whatever it might be. Maybe you work part-time, maybe you do this, maybe you do that. It doesn't matter. Keep what you're doing, because that's your foundation, that's your stability, that's your rock. And then work around that. Like, the days are long. Time, like, we have a lot more time than we give. Like, people will sit on Facebook, they'll sit on Instagram, they'll sit on Twitter, they'll sit on watching TV shows, on anything and everything. And I'm not talking about like a 10-minute video, I'm talking about hours that are being sunk into things that are just like complete waste of time deep down, but it's just for pure entertainment. And that's fine if you're happy doing that, but at the end of the day, realise that by doing that, you're not using that capacity tank as well as you could be. So, work around what you've already got. If you're working 9 to 5, that gives you from 5 o'clock until 12 o'clock at night, 1, 2 in the morning, to be working on the other stuff that you want to be doing, whether it's training your new skill or building your new business. It doesn't matter. You have the time to do that. And then once once it comes around to the next morning, go back to your normal thing that you were doing, and then work around it again. The weekends is a great example. So many people always say like, the weekends is my time to chill out and relax. And it's kind of like, well, your why, your reason for what you want to achieve is obviously just not big enough, in my opinion. Like, if you haven't got the the capacity within yourself to say, you know what, I'm going to sacrifice for this. I'm not going to go and relax on the beach on a Saturday afternoon. I'm going to work, I'm going to train, I'm going to develop, I'm going to read, I'm going to learn. Like, whatever it is that's actually moving you towards the things that you say you want to achieve. If you're not doing that, then you're not using your time as effectively as you could be. And, you know, at the end of the day, you can sit and you can decide what you do with your time personally, and that's absolutely fine. But understand that there are consequences to that, and that we are all directly responsible for the situations that we are in based on that. You know, it's not good enough to sit there and say, and this is one of the harsh things that I've had to say to some of my friends and myself recently, because I get caught up in it as well. And I have to self-assess myself and say, you know what, Sam, like, do you really want it that bad? You know, like, health and fitness is a big thing for me right now. And, you know, I can easily sit there and say, like, oh yeah, I really want to be fit, I want a six-pack and I want to be super strong. But then, when it comes down to spending time working out or eating healthily, I'd rather go and eat a pizza or not go to the gym, I'd rather relax. Well then, I obviously don't want it bad enough. So I have to keep reminding myself to make sure that I am, you know, staying on track to those objectives, and self-assess myself, but also make sure that I'm utilising my capacity, utilising my time and my skills to the best that I can do that, and in an optimal way that allows me to fast track myself to those goals that I want to achieve. And that's exactly what I hope that you guys can do from watching this sort of thing, and sit there, like, take 10 minutes after this video and write down the things that you do with your day. Write down your week schedule and just have a look and say, okay, cool, from 9 to 5 I'm doing this, but then from 5 to 8 I don't really have anything. But I say I want to be the best football player in the world, well, that would be probably quite a good time for me to go and train that. You know, or I say I want to build this big business and my brand, well, that would probably be quite a good time for me to spend on developing a new website, or looking at a USP that I can attack a market with and achieve greater things in the business world. You know, that's just an example, but spend that time, because it's worth it at the end of the day. Spend the time on you, making sure that you are optimizing your time.